You walk into any electronics store, and right away, the light starts telling you stories. Dramatic sweeps of color, perfect gravity-defying blacks, screens sharper than memory. There, front and center, sits OLED, still radiant, still unmatched. But suddenly, there's a whisper floating between the aisles. Is OLED fading? Somewhere between the tech forums, the TikTok hot takes, and the echoing halls of YouTube, a quiet rumor got loud. That OLED's days are numbered, that it peaked, that something newer is waiting in the wings to take its place. And maybe it already has. It's the kind of shift that doesn't begin in the spotlight, but in comments, message boards, soft, anxious glances thrown at product tags and spec sheets. OLED, once the king of contrast, now seen by some as an aging champion. Still good, but not future-proofed. Strange thing, how fast people fall out of love with something once seen as brilliant. But let's slow down. This idea that OLED is suddenly outdated, it doesn't come from nowhere. OLED isn't perfect, it never was. It's still expensive. The larger you go, 77, 83 inches and up, the more the price stretches into dream money territory. Technologies built on LCD and mini LED are catching fire in showrooms, boasting more brightness, better size for price value, and honestly, they're not bad. Some are beautiful, even. So people start asking, if I can get something brighter, bigger, and possibly longer lasting for less, why bother with OLED anymore? Fair question. But here's the thing, every screen tells a story differently. OLED doesn't shout, it whispers. It paints shadows instead of flooding them. It handles black like calligraphy, every dark corner sculpted. Every scene in a film becomes textured, not just colored. When an OLED gets it right, light feels like it was just born. LCD can fake it, MicroLED can chase it, but OLED, real OLED, breathes like a photograph developing in still water. But okay, you're not here for poetry. You want to know, is OLED actually on its way out? Is it still worth buying? Or are we witnessing the slow farewell of a once revolutionary format? Let's start where the doubt begins. First, brightness. OLED panels have historically not been as bright as LED or mini LED screens. That's not new. And in rooms with lots of windows and sunlight, that matters, especially for daytime TV watchers. The contrast is jaw-dropping at night, but some say it washes out under sunlight glare. Second, burn-in fear. This one's been around since OLED hit the mainstream. Too much static on screen, like a news ticker or a scoreboard, and people worry it'll leave a permanent ghost. Modern OLEDs have gotten better at handling this. Way better. But the reputation lingers. Third, pricing plateau. While LCD and LED prices have dropped steadily with innovation and scale, OLED hasn't seen dramatic cuts, especially in the premium, large format sizes. To some, that feels like stagnation. Old tech in a new box. And fourth, competition. Mini LEDs, especially those coming from Hisense, TCL, even Samsung's Neo QLED, are closing the gap with OLED. Maybe not fully replicating its depth or shadow, but offering something very, very good at a more accessible cost. Some say good enough. That's the surface picture. But surface doesn't always tell the full story, because while OLED might not burn as bright in sunlight, the tech has quietly improved. Not in a fireworks kind of way. More like slow breathing, gradual refinement. LG's latest G series and Samsung's QD-OLED models are brighter now than they've ever been, pushing beyond 1,500 nits in highlight peaks. For most home settings, that's more than enough. And OLED's Achilles heel, burn-in, is now more a myth than a danger. Pixel shift, logo dimming, screensavers, they all come built in. Unless you leave CNN playing 12 hours a day with HUD burn from a video game, it's not a real issue for most people. As for price, well, yes, OLED is still premium. But so are espresso machines, and SLR cameras, and handmade instruments. It's not about mass market conquest. It's about a niche that refuses to compromise on depth. Enthusiasts still stand by it. Creatives live by it. Filmmakers color grade with OLED. That doesn't stop in one product cycle. You don't measure OLED by specs alone. You measure it by feeling. Still, feelings don't stop change. So what is coming next? It's a fair question. Next-gen display tech is growing under the surface. MicroLED, sometimes called the true successor to OLED, is shining in demos. Self-emissive like OLED, but without burn-in risk, capable of even higher brightness. Infinite black meets eye-tearing white. No filters, no compromises. Problem is, MicroLED isn't ready for your living room. Not yet. Right now, it's wall-sized or wallet-breaking, often both. The promise is real, but the mass-scale manufacturing? Not solved. Then there's QNED, Mini-LED, ULEDX, QD-OLED. Yeah, the naming gets messy quick. Some of these are real technologies. Some, just marketing glitter. QD-OLED is the most exciting evolution. It mixes the best of quantum dots and OLED's perfect black. Samsung and Sony are running with it. These panels are brighter than traditional OLED, with richer color volume. It's not a replacement, it's an upgrade, an OLED hybrid. But is QD-OLED the death of OLED? Not really. It is OLED. Just evolved. Which brings us back to the original question. Is OLED dying or just changing? Look, the idea that OLED's time is over isn't exactly coming from engineers or producers in Hollywood post houses. It's often coming from tech fans who see innovation in peaks. Something new arrives, and they declare the old thing obsolete. But the tech world doesn't work in deletes. It stacks. Just like vinyl didn't kill the cassette, and streaming didn't kill the DVD overnight, OLED won't vanish because something newer exists on paper. Right now, the TV market is splitting, not shrinking. There are people buying 98-inch mini-LED monsters for sports. Others want 55 inches of pure shadow and emotion for Sunday night cinema. And others don't care about any of it. They just want something that turns on and looks decent. But those who care, the ones asking these questions, they're onto something. Not panic, not hype, just curiosity. 2025 won't kill OLED, but it might shift what OLED means, where it lives, who it's for. Maybe it'll stop trying to chase everyone and start leaning into what it's best at. And that's not a funeral, that's growing up. So where exactly does OLED fit now? In this cluttered, ever-advancing landscape of screens, specs, and side-by-side comparisons. Let's zoom out. Every era of television has had its champion. CRTs were thick and heavy, but people didn't care. It was all they knew. Then came plasma, heat-pumping, color-rich plasma. People loved it until size gave way to weight, and weight gave way to LEDs that were cheaper, thinner, smarter. LCD was bright and efficient. Then LED got smarter. And suddenly, TV wasn't just a household appliance. It became art. OLED entered that story late. Not the first, not the easiest, not the cheapest, but different. Finally, contrast meant more than just color separation. It meant silence, stillness, black that actually disappears. And for the first time, people looked into the screen instead of just at it. That magic, it hasn't gone anywhere. But change is creeping in, and some of it is quietly, beautifully disruptive. TVs aren't just TVs anymore. They're digital windows, ambient canvases, conversation starters, or invisible. There are rollable screens now, transparent displays in concept stages, projectors the size of handbags. Samsung's pushing the frame, a TV that isn't a TV at all until you turn it on. LG has a signature OLED that rolls back into its base like some kind of sci-fi scroll. It's not that OLED is out of style, it's that attention is expanding in new directions. And OLED, for all its visual perfection, is still very much playing the role of premium flat panel. People are chasing something else now too. Flexibility, personality, smaller footprints with bigger voices, brightness, but not just in nits, in concepts. So OLED has to ask itself, do I keep up or do I dig in? Most signs point to digging in, and honestly, there's something powerful about that. Tech that's not trying to be the next big thing, but the beautiful thing that lasts. Consumers are starting to separate into two tribes. Some want the flash, the showroom brightness, the surface wow, and others, they want depth, shadow detail, storytelling power. OLED lives here, on that quieter side of the spectrum, and right now, it still holds a secret weapon. Many overlook microcontrast. It's more than pixel count or HDR support. Microcontrast is the fine texture in the shadows, the subtle tone in dark clothing against a darker background. Most techs can't do that. They either crush the shadow or flatten it out with artificial lighting. OLED doesn't overthink, it just delivers. You could put a $2,000 mini LED TV next to a $2,000 OLED and, side by side, sure, the LED might look brighter. Demo reels pop, but the longer you sit, the more you start seeing the difference. The way OLED doesn't struggle in dim corners, the way it absorbs ambient light instead of fighting it, the way it handles film grain without turning it into noise. This is why filmmakers still love OLED. This is why colorists still calibrate to it. And here's another truth people skip. Display tech isn't just about specs, it's about intention. OLED was built for beauty, accuracy, pause moments. It's not obsessed with winning the brightness race because it's not built for showrooms. It's built for living rooms after 8 p.m. Curtains drawn, kids asleep. A film you've already seen twice but want to feel again. Does that mean OLED is perfect? Not at all. The conversation about OLED's future isn't one-sided. There are real limitations the industry hasn't solved yet. Size, for starters. If you want a 65-inch OLED, great, you're in the sweet spot. Go up to 77 or 83 inches, and suddenly you're crossing into home cinema territory. Those panels are harder and more expensive to make. And OLED yields, meaning how many working panels a factory can actually ship from each glass cut, are still lower than LCD. That's a manufacturing problem, and a costly one, especially as people tolerate imperfections less and expect perfection more. Then there's color brightness. This is where QLED and mini LED often gain ground. Colors, especially reds and greens, explode off the screen with quantum dot precision. OLED handles them more naturally, sometimes even subtly, and while that's more true to life, it can look less impressive in a Best Buy aisle under fluorescent light. Also, people love brightness, especially in the age of open floor plan homes drenched in natural light. OLED has made strides, some models hitting over 1,000 nits cleanly, but it's still not dominating the brightness leaderboards. And for some folks, that's deal-breaking. There's another pressure point you can't ignore: competition from below. Brands like Hisense and TCL are now producing jaw-droppingly good ULED and mini LED sets at prices that feel almost too low. And they're good. Not perfect, but shockingly close to the high-end performers. Good enough that most buyers will never know what they're missing. And that's the key phrase here: most, not all. OLED thrives in the space between the pixels. That's where storytelling hides. It lives in the fiber of cinematography, the ways dark versus darker drama plays out. It's not about hard lines, it's about gradients. Shading, gray on black, not just white on bright. If your watching is casual, fast-paced, mostly sports, mostly daytime, OLED might feel like more than you need. But if you slow down with your screen, if you're the type who watches how light sifts through fog in a slow burn thriller, OLED gets you. And honestly, that niche, that's not shrinking. Not yet. It's changing, sure. Maybe OLED stops trying to win over every buyer walking through Walmart with a weekend budget. Maybe it settles into its identity, the choice for those who prioritize cinematic immersion and shadow refinement over showroom flair. Honestly, not every form of tech needs mass adoption to survive. Some thrive in the margins. Vinyl never went away. Leica cameras still exist. People still buy mechanical watches, not because they're better, but because they feel right. OLED 2 might stop competing at all. There's also a secret structure behind all of this: display glass investment. LG Display and Samsung Display have sunk billions with AB into OLED manufacturing plants. You don't walk away from that kind of capital overnight, especially for a technology that's still top-ranked in reviewer shootouts, photo grading suites, and premium home cinema setups. Samsung didn't believe in OLED at first. Now they're pushing QD-OLED as their future-forward flagship. That speaks volumes, not just about the tech, but about who it's for. OLED may not be for everyone, but it was never trying to be. If you measure progress by charts, peak brightness, or panel uniformity tests, sure, OLED may look like it's hanging on. But if you measure by hearts won, scenes enhanced, memories made on screen, it's alive and well. The future of TV isn't about choosing the best tech. It's about knowing which one knows you better. OLED knows intimacy, detail, quiet drama. It knows how small things on screen can feel big inside you. Right now, people are waking up to the fact that better doesn't always mean newer. Sometimes better means more intentional, more refined, more human. And OLED didn't lose that. Not now, not yet. Let's be honest, not everyone walking into a store cares about panel types. They want a screen, one that turns on quickly, looks good, doesn't break, doesn't blind them in the dark, doesn't miss the last scene of a movie because an app glitched again. They don't care if it's OLED, QD-OLED, ULED, or made out of recycled moon panels. They want one that's smart enough to work, simple enough to live with, bright enough to see the news, sharp enough to watch the final season of whatever they're barely clinging to out of tradition. But quietly, without always saying it aloud, they also want to feel something. That's what OLED still does best. Not in charts, not in specs, not in the YouTuber voice that says, "What's up, guys?" before even breathing. Just in moments, in how it handles silence, in the warm decay of a sunset scene, the glow off a face that's about to break into tears but doesn't, in the horror movie hallway that's dark, not because the filmmaker forgot to turn on a light, but because the fear lives there. OLED isn't the future like some product roadmap bullet point. It's the present people keep underestimating because they're chasing whatever's next. But here's a weird thing. Sometimes, the next big thing already lives in something we've just stopped looking at clearly. Something familiar, mature, polished, still evolving. Because no, OLED's not frozen in place. It's evolving, just not always loudly. Look at what's happening on the periphery. WOLED panels, the foundation used by LG, are starting to get serious competition from their own siblings, QD-OLED, like Samsung's S95 and Sony's A95 lines. These aren't spin-offs. These are upgrades. They take deep black and add vibrancy. Color pop, clean whites. Samsung's QD layer brings out reds and greens without the usual OLED sacrifice. And LG, they've doubled down as well, with MLA, micro-lens array, tech. It's a subtle hardware trick using microscopic lenses to redirect light more efficiently, which means higher peak brightness, better off-angle view, and still that perfect black. Everyone keeps chasing. That's what evolution looks like in mature tech. Subtle right turns, not revolutions, but refinements. Then there's the software side. Auto brightness limiters are smarter now. Calibration tools are easier, or even built in for those who dare. Dolby Vision, Filmmaker Mode, HDR, 10 plus, all baked into the most modern OLEDs. They're not just pretty displays anymore. They're storytelling machines tuned to the language of modern directors. But you want truth, okay? OLED's not for the average buyer anymore. Not really. It was once trying to win everyone. Now, it's better off focusing on the few who get it. That's where the market's going anyway. Fragmented tech tribes. There's a group that wants 100-inch living art, another that wants rollable TVs that disappear into the floor. Some want something cheap enough to put in a spare room. And then there's the group that wants to feel cinema, in their bones, not just their eyes. OLED fits in that last one. It's timeless, not because it's immune to change, but because it still cares about the right things. Control, color discipline, black that's not grayish, motion that feels natural, no halos, no backlight inconsistencies, no weird banding or blown highlights. All the stuff that ticks off quiet purists who don't tweet about it but notice it immediately. OLED doesn't sell hype anymore, it sells trust. And when you pair that with cleaner operating systems, like LG's WebOS, Sony's Google TV, or Samsung's Tizen tweaks, you get screens that aren't just about showing content, but respecting it. Which brings us to the quiet punchline no one likes saying out loud: TVs have gotten too good. Most people won't notice panel differences past a certain point. That's not an OLED problem. That's an abundance problem. When everything is amazing, contrast becomes subtle. Nuance becomes where the real heads are looking. And OLED lives comfortably in nuance. So what does the road ahead actually look like? QD-OLED will likely take more of the spotlight. Cheaper mini LEDs will steal away casual buyers. Brands like Hisense will wow people with 80% of the OLED experience at half the cost. That's okay. That's inevitable. Progress isn't a threat. But buried in all of this, there's an understanding, even if it stays quiet. OLED is no longer chasing validation. It's resting in legacy and doubling down on quality. Think about it. Every major brand still makes OLEDs. LG still calls OLED its flagship lineup. Sony uses OLEDs for their Master Series. Panasonic does too, in Japan and Europe. Samsung initially fought it, then came back with QD-OLED, now claiming it's their best. You don't invest in something dead. If OLED were going away, support would vanish. Panels would dry up. Firmware updates would stop. But it's not. It's still getting better. Behind the scenes, there are labs full of engineers trying to make OLED even thinner, even more efficient. Trying new compounds, blue light balances, less power draw, longer lifespan, more brightness. It's not consumer-facing yet, but it's happening. And until MicroLED is ready for normal homes, not billionaires or brands flexing at trade shows, OLED will hold the throne for true per-pixel precision. So when someone says OLED is dead, know this: they might be measuring life only by what's popular next. OLED isn't chasing headlines anymore. And that's a strength, not a weakness. And if it does fade, years from now, it'll do so with dignity, like plasma, still beloved, still mourned, still better than expected. But that's not today. Today, it's still quietly winning shootouts, still hanging in post-production houses, still stealing breath in side-by-side comparisons next to TVs twice the price. And here's the kicker: OLED doesn't need to beat every other tech. It just needs to feel better to you. Because sometimes the best decision isn't based on numbers. It's based on something quieter, an instinct, a pause, a moment when everything else fades, and the image just grabs you. That's the OLED moment. It's not going anywhere just yet. Hit pause on the hype. Hit play on the reel. Before you go, hit that subscribe button. We don't just review, we expose. From the hype to the hidden failures to the tricks brands hope you'll never question. So, hit like, tap subscribe, and join thousands of smart shoppers who already know. Smart spending starts with asking smarter questions.